Factsverse presents a giant weed has infested backyards across America, and it's incredibly dangerous. Most people with large backyards don't know the name of every plant growing back there. Unless a person studies plants religiously, you probably don't know if what's growing is a shrub or a weed. A giant weed has infested backyards across America, and it is a dangerous one. So dangerous, you really do need to know about it so that you can stay away if you see it. So we're going to give you that info. It's called hogweed, and it's been around for centuries. Before we jump into this video, how about you share it with your friends and family? That way they'll be aware of this dangerous weed too. And while you're here, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. Hogweed. It can grow up to 14 feet tall. A single leaf can span up to 5 feet. It sprouts a number of white crowns and it looks harmless, but it is actually noxious. It's believed that the hogweed plant came over on the Mayflower at the same time that the dandelion did. It's believed to have started growing in Russia, Armenia, and Georgia, and it was considered an ornamental plant back then. It was spotted in the UK in 1817, and by 1917 it was spreading all over the world. That year, somebody planted the seeds in Rochester, New York, and that started its growth around the country. As hogweed was popping up around Maryland, Pennsylvania, Washington, Maine, and Ohio in the 1950s, people back in Europe were starting to realize that these plants were dangerous. Despite the dangers, though, people continued to grow hogweed in their gardens and on their farms. As word spread about the dangers of hogweed, the U.S. Department of Agriculture placed it on the noxious weeds list. Today, you have to have a permit if you want to move it to another state legally, but you might not want to do that anyway when you hear about how dangerous this plant really is. Alex Childress was a teenager when he got a job working for a landscaper. He was planning to start college later in the year, so he decided to earn some extra cash while he could. While working one day, he cut down some hogweed plants that were standing really tall, and when he cut them down, they landed on his head. When he had them all cut, he carried them in his arms to dispose of them. He finished the day at work and headed home. When Alex got home, he looked in the mirror and noticed that his skin was red. At first, he thought maybe it was a sunburn because he had been outdoors all day. When he got into the shower, he was rubbing his face and pieces of skin were falling off. Soon, big chunks of his skin were coming off, and he began to panic. He was in pain. So he got out of the shower and he went to speak to his mother, who was a nurse at Virginia Commonwealth University. When Alex's mother took a look at the burns on her son's body, it made her think. She pulled up a picture of hogweed and asked her son if he had come into contact with it. Alex recognized the plant immediately and told his mother that he'd cut a bunch down that afternoon. She realized she had to get him to the hospital now. When Alex got to the hospital, the doctors examined him and took him to the university's burn unit. For Alex, the treatment was excruciating. He said that it felt like he had windburn. The doctors had him stand in the shower for an hour and a half while scrubbing his body with soap to bring down his pH level. Alex says the worst part of the treatment was having the water running over his open wounds. During the treatments, the dead skin was scraped away. Alex was in the hospital for 2 days, and the hard work continued even after he was released. Each day he had to change his bandages, which was very painful. He'd have to remove a bandage and it would be covered with drainage. While the skin on his arm was trying to heal, it would bleed. He had burns on half of his face and from his wrist to the top of his bicep on his right arm. He couldn't believe that he was burned so severely from a plant. The doctors told Alex that it was the sap that caused the burns and the exposure to sunlight made it even worse. He was told that he was actually lucky because if the sap had gotten into his eyes, he would most certainly have gone blind. As much pain as he was in now, he was thankful that he didn't get it into his eyes. The doctors told him that for his skin to heal thoroughly, he would have to stay out of the sun for 2 to 6 months. They also told him that his face would still be sensitive for a year or two, so outdoor activities and trips to the beach were not an option for a long time. If you don't want to be burned the way Alex was, steer clear of hogwood. If you're exposed to the sap, wash it immediately and avoid sunlight. Also, keep the exposed area covered. Since it's the sun that activates the sap, keeping it covered is the best way to avoid a severe burn. Please help us spread the dangers of hogweed by sharing this video with your friends, family, and all your social media. And subscribe for more.